president.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are and who connected this meeting. Welcome to one of these conference series organized by INOC. I would like to start by introducing what is INOC first, and then I will introduce my speakers, and then the topic for the sea turtles will be followed. First, Inter-Islamic Network, especially in the topic of oceans and oceanography, is one of the main thematic issue under this organization. And most of the Islamic countries have a connection with the sea. So this oceanographic network will provide for all these countries collaboration among the scientists and also exchange of knowledge among them, and maybe create more baseline for future collaborations. And hopefully all the people who are in the network or new countries will be interested in the future, they can join, and we can create a kind of fun Islamic network and make more collaboration. Especially this collaboration is very important when it comes to the sea turtles, because sea turtles may be nesting in one country and visiting to the another country, and they may be either Islamic country or no, just ordinary countries, but the collaboration is needed for the conservation of these sea turtles. Today we have two distinguished speakers for this. The first one is actually from the located in the Saudi Arabia, but he is coming from the South America, from Venezuela, from Colombia, from this part of the world, and he is associate professor actually University of Zulia, and also he founded an NGO in Venezuela, working group of marine turtles in the Gulf of Venezuela, and he is a member of ISTS, which is International Sea Turtle Society, and also MTSG member of the under IUCN. He got his PhD actually from Australia, so his expansion from the entire world, from one corner he born, and he did his PhD in the other part of the world, and now he's working in Saudi Arabia, in the middle of the continents, let's say. His research interest is basically natural resources and the human communities, especially in the indigenous people, and the anthropogenic effect on the threatened species, and how we can reduce these impacts. And this type of work he is doing, especially in the South America. And as I said at the beginning, he is working in the King Abdullah University of Science and Technology at the moment, and we know he's for many years from the ISTS meetings that we are all participating every year. It's a kind of gathering all together. His talk will be marine turtles in the Red Sea. As I said, I will introduce both speakers at the same time. So I will now move on Doğan, but I will give the first speech to the Hector. Doğan is also marine turtle biologist working more than 20 years in the Mediterranean, and he's basically working in the national and international projects. He graduated from Hacettepe University in Turkey, and also his master and PhD got at Pamukkale University. Currently he is working as a lecturer at the Pamukkale University. His research area is basically habitat use of sea turtles, fisheries effect, climate change, and pollution. And he is also part of the board director of the Decamer, and he is a national scientific committee member of the Turkish Conservation of Sea Turtles. So he will be talking about more sea turtles in the Mediterranean. Basically, with these two speakers, we will have much more information about sea turtles, both in the Red Sea and the Mediterranean, and the general problems with the turtles are facing. so that probably in the long term we can do more collaborations and more conservation work among the people either participating in this panel, or the people will hear our voice in the future and come and join in this meeting. Well, obviously introducing these people, I try to make it short so that they can talk more, obviously. And now I will give the floor and the screen to the Hector for his first presentation. And for the audience, if you have questions, please type into the chat box so that we can either I can transfer these questions directly to them during their presentations, or I will keep all the questions at the end of the meeting. Our talk and this panel will last within 1 hour. So if you have any plan, make sure that it will take roughly 1 hour. Thank you. Hector, the floor is yours. The screen is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jakub. It's what an honor to be presented by you and to share the panel with all these good friends. But I'm talking about you because we met decades ago. And it was an honor when I saw your name. So yes, thank you for this opportunity, and let's talk about turtles and why the turtles, I believe, that are one of the most charismatic species in the planet, and why they can also help us to understand how the environment is changing and how we can proceed to help the environment using the turtles as a key species. So my presentation, as Jakub say, is going to be focused on the Red Sea, a little bit of the knowledge that we know about the turtles in the Red Sea. So to talk about the turtles, of course, we need to talk first about them. So the turtles, as a general information, the turtles are reptiles. They have to breathe air, so they have to go to the surface. They have lungs, so they cannot retract the heads and the flippers on the carapace. So you can see one sea tortoise on the left, and in the right you see a tortoise. Different names. So this animal with carapace, but the anatomical adaptation to be on the sea and to swim very fast. The marine turtles, they lay eggs on the sandy beaches. So that's the connection that they have with the ancestor that they used to be in the land. And they are very famous because of that 1% of the 1% of their life when they go to the sea, to the beach and lay the eggs. Everybody knows that moment when the turtles, like, kind of crying up at night, dig a nest, lay the eggs, cover, and then go. And that moment is tonic, of course, but that's occurs only one time, just when they are mature. And it's less, I would say less than 1% of their life. The rest of the life, they are in the water, in marine environments, sometimes in the brackish areas, when the estuarine water, when the mix of salt and fresh water. Dogan is gonna provide more details about that later. And they are indicator species, because where the turtles are, we can tell what's happening with the environment, using this species as a sentinel species. In the planet, we have 7 species of marine turtles. I have the honor to have worked with all of them. After 2018, I'm working with the Kent Ridley, was the last one, and also the smallest turtle in the planet, the smallest marine turtle in the planet. And here in the Red Sea, we have 5 species. The most common one are the green turtle, the circle in yellow, and the hawksbill turtle, the circle in red. Also, we have loggerheads, olive ridley, and leatherbacks, but most of the record of these 3 species are sporadic, and sometimes only 1 or 2 per year. In the case of the leatherback, it's 1 every 10 years. So most of the information that we have from turtles in the Red Sea is focused on, or is based on, hawksbill and green turtles, which are considered, as you can see here, the conservation status vulnerable for the greens and critical endangered for the hawksbill. This status is based on the regional level. Okay. So as I mentioned, The life cycle of the turtles is quite complex. So they use the sandy beaches, but then they also use open sea or open waters, because when we say, okay, oceanic juvenile turtles, or let's say the teenager of the turtles, they not always are in open water, in ocean. Why? Because in the Red Sea, it's limited. So they don't go to the ocean. They stay, apparently they stay within the Red Sea waters until they grow, and they then just go to the foraging grounds. And is when we can see bigger animals, I would say between 30 centimeters, 40 centimeters, up to 1 meter or more, depends on the species. And is when they migrate again. The marine turtles is something important. The marine turtles are philopatric species. That means they return to the area where they born. So imagine if you are a baby turtle, you born in this beach, then you go in the sea, spend in the sea, we don't know, but let's say between 10, 15, 20 years, and then try to come back to the area where you were born. What happened when that area is destroyed or is modified by humans is when the turtles start to manage how to, or where to go to restart this cycle. So that's one of the critical things that the turtle face. And this particular behavior of the turtle is one of the reasons why we need to be very careful as a human, as our older brothers. We need to be very careful how to take decisions when we're going to make a development or how we are going to use the nesting beach, because we might affect the nesting habitat for the turtles in future generations. Marine turtles, as some other reptiles species, are very interesting because the gender, the sex of the turtle is determined by the temperature of incubation. You know, in our cases as mammals, the sexual chromosomes are XX for females and XY for males. But the turtles are, when they are in the egg, they are X0. So the gender, the sex of the turtle, it will depend based on how warm or how cold was the temperature when they were incubated in the nest. So when the temperature is quite colder, I would say colder, but it's not really cold, is about 27, around that number. Most of the turtle will be males. In general, when the temperature is around 30, this number are just for general information, okay? Every single species have a different values. Every single population have different values, but just in general, just to give you an idea. So in the middle, 50% of the baby will be male and 50% will be females. When the temperature go up to 30, 33 or more, spoiler alert about my last slide, the proportion of the babies will be towards female. So warmer temperatures produce more female turtles. And this is one of the impact that we are facing now in this new planet with the warmer temperatures, because we are facing a feminization of the populations. So there is one paper published in Australia. Some of the colleagues, they found like 99.6% of the babies that they are producing in one of the beaches there in Rain Island, 99.6% are females, and the other portion are males. This is based only in the incubation temperature. But when they test these values in water environments, they realize that we actually have more males. So there is one link that is missing, that we don't know what's happening, if there is a change in these values, in this temperature, or there is a change later, but basically we don't know. But just to take the take message from this slide is that, remember that the gender, the sex of the turtles depends on the incubation temperature. And when we start to talk about the threats, so how we humans start to impact on the survival of the turtle, this is a graph, I really like it. It's very illustrative to show of how many eggs the turtle can lay on the beach, and not all of them produce actually babies. So we have a proportion of eggs that are unfertilized, or they have some abnormalities inside. So we don't have a hatchling. So we don't have a baby turtle from that egg. So we lose one part of the eggs. Then the baby turtles, they are, food. They are food for so many species: crabs, seagulls, sharks. You mentioned any animal that is bigger than a turtle can eat it. So in the time, when the time passes and the turtles start to grow, the number of predators start to decrease. So the crab is not able to eat it not anymore, but the shark, yes. So the turtles always is something very important in the ecological aspect of the turtle. The turtles always have predators. Even the big size animals, they always are prey. But of course, the number of predators reduce with the time. There is one saying, it's not science, it's just a traditional belief that we say every 1,000 eggs, we have only 1 or 2 babies that reach adulthood. And this is in the natural conditions, but then when we add the humans into the equation, we know that we are impacting in a very bad way the turtles. So in general, we can see the threats. These threats are based on the global assessment. The fisheries bycatch. I think Dogan is gonna explain more about this. Direct take. So some communities in the planet, they actually use the marine turtle as a food, as a medicine, and it's a take which only directed to turtles. It's not bycatch, it's intentional capture. We also have pollution and pathogen, but basically pollution, plastic pollution, chemical pollution, air pollution. Also, we have coastal development and climate change. These are in general the threats, the five categories to put together all the threats that are impacting at global scale the survival of marine turtles. Now talking about the Red Sea, the threats are more localized, are based on fisheries bycatch, the habitat loss and degradation. There is one problem here in this coast of the Red Sea. We have a lot of beach driving. So it's very common in the weekends to see families that drive on the beach. So because of this beach driving, we can see that most of the population or most of the turtles are laying eggs on the islands where the driving is limited. But the historical nesting habitat that we used to have in mainland is very, very deteriorated, and the number of turtles laying eggs on mainland is reduced. We also have light pollution. That's example you can see in the photo, the green turtle laying eggs here, and then you can see all the lights at the bottom. And the problem with the light is that the babies, the hatchling, the baby turtle, when they hatch, when they born, so when they hatch, they emerge. They, in natural condition, they will follow what is the brightest spot. In natural condition is the moon and the stars over the water. But now with the humans, we have all this light. So the turtle, they get confused. They don't know where they should go, and they try to go to this light. And the mortality due to light pollution is quite high in nesting beaches. Also, we have vessel strike. So basically the boat traffic impact, especially passing over a key habitat, feeding habitat or nesting habitat. So we have evidence of turtle that with propeller hits on the carapace. Direct harvest is quite limited. It's there because it happened, but it's very, very low, to be honest. And the pollution is something that we need to study a bit more, but I think is an important threat at local level. In the photo on the left, you can see when one of my research assistant performing a weekly survey. You can see the amount of green turtle track that we are counting every week during the nesting season here in the Red Sea. So just to conclude this part, so based on all this, we know that the turtle here are critical endangered, the hawksbill, and vulnerable, the green turtles. This is based on the IUCN conservation status. So in the Red Sea, this information is based on a paper published by Shimada in 2021 that evaluate the presence of the nesting in the Giga projects. I don't know if you are aware about the Giga projects. Are some areas that are going to be developed into big hotels, luxury zones to increase the tourists into Saudi Arabia. So from north to south, the areas are Neom, Amala, Red Sea Global now, and this is not a Giga project, but it's an important nesting beach, Ras Baridi. In the Red Sea, we can see a seasonality. When we go in the south, so here in Eritrea and Yemen, you can see how the nesting season is shifted to the beginning of the year, with a peak, for example, in February, March, and April. But when you go north in latitude, the peak of the season start to move towards summertime. So now, for example, the projects here in Saudi Arabia, now we are in the peak, or we just passed the peak of the green turtles, which is August, but we are still in the nesting season for green turtle. But for hawksbill, the season already finished. And these are the nesting densities and the size of the population for both species in the whole Red Sea. This information is based on published data. I'm not assuming that this is totally correct or updated, but this is the information which is published. So we can see here with the green turtles that the most important beach is Ras Baridi, is in Saudi Arabia. And then we have two important areas, one in Egypt, in Sabahat Island, and also in Brim Island, or Mashaba Jatsira. In the case of the hawksbill, the most important beach is in Sudan, in Suaki Archipelago. And then we have some important concentration of hawksbill laying eggs in Eritrea, this area in Saudi Arabia Islands, and also here in Al-Wakadi Island, or Al-Wakadi Jatsira. There is some data that we have collected so far with satellite tracking. So we have tracked, this information is not published yet, but it's going to be published inshallah next year. We already are preparing the manuscript, so we can see the distribution of the feeding grounds. So we have identified feeding grounds area along the whole coast of Saudi Arabia, but also some feeding grounds in Eritrea, in Sudan, and Egypt as well. So we can see the turtles from Saudi Arabia, some of them cross the Red Sea, and some of them stay in the Red Sea zone. So this area confirms the data that is already published. So these three maps these three figures are information about the satellite tracking information from green turtles from Ras Baridi, the left, hawksbill turtles from Neom and Red Sea project in Saudi Arabia, and this map on the right is some 4 turtle track of animal tracking from Egypt. And based on the genetic composition, we know very little, to be honest, here in the Red Sea so far. We know that we have only one haplotype, maybe not, but so far which is published is that we have only one haplotype of green turtle, which is also shared with the Oman population. So you can see the color, the white color here. It's the same that we have here in Ras Baridi. Of course, this study is biased because we have only 16 samples. That paper was published by Jensen in 2019. And the last comment is about the potential impact of climate change. So this is one of the raw data that we're going to publish soon. So we have the temperature of incubation during the whole period of this turtle. So you can see at the beginning of the August, the temperature was quite okay for the turtle, so 31, 32, 33. But then the in September, the temperature reached up more than 35 degrees, which if you use this value for other population, it might be considered lethal. But what we know is that when we pass this peak of very high temperature, it drops again. We have some rain in October, and we have more than 60% of hatching success. So something is happening with the population. They are adapting to these warmer temperatures. Definitely, we can see, but we need to keep improving our data set to know if these animals that are surviving these very hot temperatures are actually all males or all females or are 50-50. We don't know. So these are one of the things that we need to explore further in the future. So this is a brief of what we know about the turtle here in the Red Sea. If you have any question and comment, I'm more than happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Hector, for your very nice presentation. Actually, there are a couple of questions directly connected to your presentation. I will sum up for you. Some of them came from our colleague from Abdulmullah Hamza from Libya. The first one is, are you keeping the optimal temperatures for sea turtles, or are you manipulating any temperature in the sex determination mechanisms? And the other one is, any sex ratio data, it came in the last minute. The other one is, are there any rescue centers in Arabia, and it can be model for the region? And the third one is, diving and the other human disturbance are maybe causing the turtles to leave to the islands for nesting. You mentioned some of these, but these were the questions in the chat box. I would be very happy if you briefly answer these questions before Doğan's presentation.
Okay, well, about the sex radio experiment, we don't have it. We don't have the data yet. What I know is happening now. It's happening actually this season. We have the first trails. They are not run by our department, to be clear, but I know that this is happening. So there are some experiments already that are understanding the temperatures, and also the manipulation is not allowed. We are not manipulating any nest yet, because we need to know first what we are producing, and then we can take an action. You know, in some areas in the planet, some people is putting water, some people is putting fresh water, some people is watering with salt water, some people is using shade. So all these measurements can be put in place, but so far today we haven't used any of those. So we need to be very careful in this process. It's a long-term conservation plan. So today we haven't used any of those techniques. Regarding the temperature, the pivot temperature, when we use the study that was published in Australia and in Florida, it was just unnecessary. So we use the 33 degrees as a lethal temperature, and we can see that it's not lethal at all. So the population in the Red Sea are adapted to this change. So we are now studying these variations. So no, we try, but it was just like if we assume that using that temperature, we use that in our model, we should produce in 0 turtles, and we are producing. Actually, we have produced more than a couple of thousand turtles in our project so far. And the last question was about the diving, right?
The rescue center.
Oh, the rescue center.
Do you have any rescue center, and it can serve as a model for the region?
No, we don't have a rescue center. We have an aquarium that have support our activities. So there is one aquarium in Jeddah that have some facilities that help to keep turtles in the past, but it's not working as a rehab center yet. I know there is some plans to develop a couple of rehab centers one for seabirds in the north, one for turtles and dugongs, dolphins in the center, and another one in the south that is gonna be probably the biggest one. but now they are just plans, so it's nothing happening yet. But we have some experience doing that. And the tournament by diving.
I will expand this question. Actually, there are two more questions regarding to this. Can you compare the problems in the coastal region with the other parts of the world? And also regarding to these nesting in the islands, who is monitoring actually these nesting activities? Is it in the full season or partially monitored in the some part of the nesting season?
Okay, I'm gonna start with the last question. So some island, the key islands, so we call it the index beaches, are monitoring every week during the peak season, and other minor beaches are monitoring every month just during the season. Some of the stuff that we have seen here is that we probably have nesting events. It's no season, but nesting events occurring from January up to November. So it's almost a year-round nesting action. It's not a season. These are probably a couple of 2 or 3 animals that are laying eggs outside of the season, but we cannot focus, or we are not having full-time patrols every single day, because in the small beaches it's not worthy. So we just go there every 2 months or every month just to do the census. There is a couple of groups. So, you know, every single Giga project have their own environmental department that is performing this census. And we, as a beacon, we are doing the surveys in focus on the peak of the season in certain beaches. In Ras Baridi, for example, we are monitoring that beach. So we are in charge of the whole season. So we have 24/7 staff on the beach during the peak of the season. So it's August, September, October, and November. And then outside of the season, we have just weekly evaluations. Multiple stakeholders are performing these actions, to be honest. And so there is no only one answer probably to that question. And the diving, so the divers. No, I don't think the tourist activity is not intense yet here in Saudi Arabia. So the diving is more sporadic. And I think that the turtles found in the islands, these habitats are more protected, because the access to this island sometimes is quite limited because of the permits and the Coast Guard. So these islands are more protected. Some islands are totally open to tourists, and the amount of turtle that you can see there is not as much, but you can see turtles in the tourist area. So I don't think that the diving have a heavy impact, but for sure it's something that we need to get more data, more information to give you a more solid answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Hector, for summing up and a very brief information for these questions. Well, if there is no other questions or any other comments, I would like to shift to the second speaker. I introduced previously, but there were some late participants to the meeting. Now, Doğan Sözbilen will talk about the sea turtles in the Mediterranean. So if you have any other questions, please type into the chat box. I will transfer them at the end of the meeting. Doğan, the floor and the screen is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kaska. And first of all, I would like to thank Islamic Network for inviting us for this speech and organizing this important symposium. Today, I'm going to talk about the marine turtles of the Mediterranean. Since Hector gave a very good presentation before me, he gave very important and brief information about the sea turtles. I believe my presentation will be easy for me because he gave all the necessary information. Okay, as Hector summarized, I'm going to give some basic and important information about the marine turtles. As you know, they are long-lived. they are living at least 50 years, maybe up to 100 years. It's changing among species. They are really cryptic creatures, especially in the sea, and it's really hard to reach them at the sea, but they are coming to the sandy beaches for reproducing, and most of our knowledge are dependent on the female turtles. And also they are philopatric animals. They return to their natal beaches for reproduction. So when they hatch and goes to the sea, they spend like 20-25 years, and they come back to the same beach which they already born. And they are traveling long distances and migrate between foraging and breeding areas. So it makes all conservation actions really hard, because conserving a turtle population at one point is not enough for conserving the population, because they are migrating to other areas. As I said, they spend almost entire lives at sea, but they are still dependent on the lands, especially the sandy dunes, for reproduction. So the beaches are really important for their survival. And in the Mediterranean, we have two species of sea turtles, marine turtles. One is the loggerhead turtle, Caretta caretta, is very famous, and the other one is the green turtle, Kenonymidas. The both species are reproducing in the Mediterranean, and they are local species. We have three other species: leatherback turtles, Olive Ridley and Kempsey. They are visiting Mediterranean, entering from Gibraltar to Mediterranean, and very few records of these species. Leatherback is more common. We have like 20 records in the sea about leatherback turtles in Turkey, but for the others, as they are usually encountered at the Western Mediterranean part in the Mediterranean. I would like to talk about the history of these animals in the Mediterranean. Marine turtles are believed to colonize in Mediterranean roughly about 65,000 years ago, during the Pleistocene era. And the climate is always changing. There are some warm periods, there are some cold periods. And during the warmer era, they colonized in eastern Turkey and western Greece in about 30,000 years ago. The population expanded and got back to the Libyan coast, the North African coast in the time, but now today we know that most of the nesting areas are in Turkey and Greece, especially for the loggerhead turtle. Almost half of the population is nesting in Greece and also Turkey. We have nesting sites in Cyprus, Lebanon, Libya, and Tunisia. For the green turtles, most of the green turtles are nesting at the Levantine Basin in Cyprus, eastern Mediterranean coast of Turkey, and Lebanon, Syria. Countries like this have the green turtle populations. And we know that Mediterranean sea turtles, marine turtles, are genetically isolated from the Atlantic ancestors. They also have smaller size than the oceanic turtles, and they are not mixing too much. Some of the Atlantic population turtles, especially for the loggerheads, are entering to the Mediterranean, but very few breeding among those two, and mostly genetically isolated from those populations. So we have a unique population in the Mediterranean. And when we look at this history, sea turtles settled in the Mediterranean long before humans settled in the Mediterranean coast of in the Mediterranean coast. And when we look at the archaeological findings, human and sea turtle interactions has a history from the ancient times. And you can see in the map on the left, published in 2001, you can see the remainings of the sea turtles in the ancient locations. And you can also see one of the almost fossilized ones on the right. There are lots of findings in the Mediterranean. So human interactions and human and turtle interactions has a history in the Mediterranean. And we can see from this, from the other findings like coins, a lot of coins from different archaeological sites has sea turtles on it, which is really important. You know, if something is important, they are printing on their coins at that time, so they have a good relationship among them. But this interaction increased by the time, and the anthropogenic effects have lots of negative effects on sea turtles in the Mediterranean. The most important one is the interaction with the fisheries. Fisheries is depleting our fish stocks in the Mediterranean and also affecting lots of vulnerable species, including sea turtles. Casale published a paper in 2011, and he estimated that 132,000 turtles caught every year, and 34,000 of them are dying the fishing nets with several fishing techniques. Human exploration is an issue in some part of the Mediterranean. Until the mid-50s, 60s, even in Turkey, they were harvesting, some people were harvesting turtles. Now it's forbidden, and it's not, but still in some remote areas in the Mediterranean, we can see it. Another important issue is marine debris and pollution in the sea. I'm going to talk about a project in the following slides, but in one of our projects, we found that at least 30% of the turtles are ingesting marine litter in the Mediterranean. In some part of the Mediterranean, it increases to 100%. Also, recreational activities have an impact on marine turtles, especially development on coastal zone, tourism and other activities, increasing the marine traffic and damaging the sand beaches. So we are actually destroying their reproduction habitats. It's another important threat. And the last one, which is very important, is the climate change, because climate change have a lot of effects on this. Hector already explained some of them in his presentation, and I'm going to talk about them later. And today, we have loggerhead turtle globally vulnerable because the Mediterranean population of loggerhead turtles downgraded to least concern in 2015. And also we have other estimation. Casale and Hepa published a paper, and they estimated the adult numbers of loggerhead turtles as almost 16,000 adult individuals. For the green turtles, the population is decreasing, and they are classified as endangered. Mediterranean subpopulation assessment is still in progress. It's about to finish, but it's estimated that more than 3,000 adults living in the Mediterranean now. Now, please go back to Hector's presentation and remember how many eggs producing an adult turtle. So we have lots of nesting beaches. I'm going to show you in the Mediterranean. We are producing lots of hatchlings, but only very few of them are reaching to the adulthood. So adults are very important. And thinking about the problems I mentioned in the previous slide, we are losing a lot of adults in the Mediterranean. And even if especially the loggerhead turtle is considered as least concern according to IUCN. It is still conservation dependent, and conservation actions should continue in the Mediterranean. And conservation studies in the Mediterranean started in the late 70s in Greece. And in 80s, it started in Turkey. 90s, the studies expanded in Cyprus and other countries. There are some other records of sea turtle, about sea turtles, scientific reports, but there are very few. You can see at the graph the number of publication studies. After the mid-80s, the number of studies increased in the Mediterranean. Also, we have new emerging nesting sites. Lots of conservation studies have been carried out in Turkey, Greece, and Cyprus mainly. In Libya, Tunisia, and other countries carrying out conservation studies, but we still have limited data. So we are discovering new nesting sites still after 40 years. And also sporadic nesting started in the Mediterranean. As Hector explained, there are some sporadic events. Sporadic nesting is when you find a turtle nest in a remote area far from the nesting site. We call it sporadic nesting. It is an occasional situation, but the number of sporadic nesting has been increasing in the Mediterranean, especially in the western coast of the Mediterranean. In addition to this, almost all of the studies have been carried out on the beaches in the Mediterranean. Very few studies in the sea. So we have a good knowledge about sea turtles in the Mediterranean, but very few knowledge about their life in the sea. In this map, you can see the nesting areas of sea turtles here. Most of the loggerhead turtle nest is on the western coast of Greece and in Turkey, especially in the western part. Also, you can see nesting in Tunisia, Libya. Libya has very important colony, by the way. There are lots of possible nesting sites known and possible nesting sites. And we have very limited data about Egypt. And also we have some nests in Lebanon and the Levanten Basin. And as you can see, most of the green turtle nesting occurring in the Levanten Basin, especially in Turkey, Cyprus, Syria, until Israel. Green turtle population is really small in the Mediterranean. As I said, until the mid-50s, 60s, a lot of green turtles were caught and sold to the European countries for consumption until it became forbidden. It is believed that almost 80,000 turtles has been slaughtered and sent to the European. Now we have only around 3,000 adult turtles. There is a huge effect of anthropogenic consumption on this species. Another finding about the foraging area and wintering area of the marine turtles, this is about loghead turtle. We know that almost all Nearctic areas in the eastern part of the Mediterranean, we can see loggerhead turtles. Also, we start to see much more turtles in the northern west coast of the Mediterranean, especially in Spain and France. Also, for the green turtles, the Nearctic areas in Turkey, the Levanten Basin, and the North Africa has green turtles, and they are migrating from the nesting sites to the northern coast of Africa. There are other studies with the satellite tracking These are from Turkey, from our study. Giulia Geritelli was the first author of this study. And as you can see, the turtles nested in Turkey, western part of Turkey, is using the Aegean coast, the Adriatic, Tunisian plateau, Libya, Egypt, all around, almost all around the Mediterranean. We also have a couple of unpublished data that they can pass to the western part. One or two turtles pass to the western part, and we know that from Cyprus and Greece, turtles are going to the western Mediterranean. Okay, this is from Greece, published in 2020. As you can see, they are using other areas in the Mediterranean, especially the western part, Adriatic and Tunisian plateau, even the western Mediterranean. And last year, there is another publication has been published by Kot et al. We were part of this study, especially. I think most of the turtle people contribute to this study. There was thousands of tracking data, and I only took the Mediterranean part. As you can see here, you can find feed for the Mediterranean, which means, as I said before, conserving a sea turtle population at certain point, especially if you are carrying out a protection conservation project in Dalyan, Turkey, you cannot save the turtles of Dalyan because they are migrating all over the Mediterranean. So we need a strong collaboration in the Mediterranean. Plus, as I said, sporadic nesting is increasing in the Mediterranean. It's a recent, there's a very new publication about the sporadic nesting events in the Mediterranean. As you can see, all those dots have nesting since 1990. And the number of sporadic nesting is increasing, especially in Italy and Spain. There are lots of records. So in 20 years ago, finding a turtle nest was a miracle. But now, every year, especially at some certain places, we are finding sporadic nesting, and it became a regular nesting area. The nesting population is now very slow, but in 20-25 years' time, there will be probably larger population in these areas. So the turtles are expanding their range in the Mediterranean. And another very new publication by Snape et al. Published last year, emerging and existing foraging areas of green turtles. You can see here. This is from the Cyprus. The important information about this one, the circle here, this is in Egypt, called Lake Bardaville. Lake Bardaville is an interesting example because it was not existed 100 years ago. After anthropogenic activities, they made a connection with the sea, and the seagrasses entered this area. There was actually a lagoon-like place, and now it's a lake connected with the lagoon. And now we have seagrasses that can provide food for the green turtles, and important numbers of the green turtles of the Mediterranean are going to the Lake Bardaville for using the area as foraging area. And also we have some records, those are not published yet, but we have connection with Lake Bardaville from Turkey. Some of the loggerhead turtles are using these areas. So this area made by man and became very important for the sea turtles. So it is providing really good environment for turtles, but there is another threat because it's handmade place and providing lots of food for the turtles. And what happens if we decided to close the connection to the sea? So we will lose a very important foraging area for the sea turtles, and it is going to be a big threat for the future of sea turtles. So, future. I try to explain the knowledge about the turtles in the Mediterranean. We have really good level of knowledge on sea turtles, especially on the nesting beaches, especially on the index nesting beaches. But we still have information gaps, especially about the juvenile and male turtles in the sea. And also we have limited information from some Northern African countries. So the collaboration and scientific research and conservation studies should expand to those areas. Another thing about the Mediterranean is the world's fastest warming region at the moment. Existing nesting sites at risk because it's expected to have sea level rise. So if the sea level rise happens in the future, so we can lose lots of nesting size of the sea turtles, existing sea turtle size. And as Hector explained in his presentation, if the temperature going up and if we have warmer incubation environment, so we may lose most of the embryos during the incubation. So our nesting beaches will not produce enough hatchlings for the survival of the sea turtles. And with the climate change, turtles are not stable. As I said, they came to Mediterranean like 60,000 years ago, settles in Greece and Turkey 30,000 years ago. So by the changes of environment, they are looking for suitable places so they can move to new foraging and nesting sites. And we are experiencing this with the sporadic sites, as you can remember from the previous slides. We have lots of sporadic nesting, even in the Aegean coast. We have been tracking Aegean coast in the last 10 years, and we recorded lots of sporadic nesting, even in Turkey. We have lots of sporadic nesting. We did not have nets in the Aegean coast of Turkey about 10 to 20 years ago. Now we have lots of nets. It will become a problem in the future, I believe, because now some regions, especially at the north, the interaction between the fisheries and the sea turtles are low. But if they move to the northern coast of the Mediterranean, where fishermen are not familiar with the sea turtles, so there will be another problem in the future. So climate change is going to affect the Mediterranean sea turtles a lot in the future. And another one, the Mediterranean is rapidly becoming polluted. Pollution is really important. As I said, in some places, especially north and west part of Mediterranean, the marine litter ingestion rate reaches 100%. According to some studies, almost all stranded turtles has plastic or some marine litter in their gut. So pollution is really important problem, and it is increasing. Nesting beaches threatened by overuse. A lot of tourists are visiting the nesting beaches, and the number of people at nesting beaches and the surrounding environment is increasing. So we are damaging their natural habitats. It is another problem. And bycatch due to fishing activity is still the most important threat. We were also a partner of project I'm going to talk about in the last couple of slides about the vulnerable species in the Mediterranean, and we saw that all vulnerable animals, including sea turtles, are suffering from the bycatch fishing activities, which is really important. So marine turtle conservation depends on strong cooperation between the countries. In many countries, the legal basis for the protection is good in the Mediterranean. We are all familiar about this, but the major shortcomings in practice. When it comes to the practice, applying those legal bases and laws is not at good level. So we need to work on this. And there are some opportunities. Many projects and partnerships have been already established in the Mediterranean, addressing the current threats, like life program supported project Mad Turtles, conservation of marine turtles project, illicit project about the pollution, the Mad Bycatch project, about the bycatch issue in the Mediterranean. All those projects, there are several other projects with the international collaboration, collected real valuable data, and there are lots of things to do in the future. But unfortunately, most of those projects finished, and we are having problems to find new fundings to continue our partnership. We need to find a solution about this. For example, conservation of marine turtles in the Mediterranean region project is multi countries, lots of countries involved in this project. Arkedon from Greece, Dekamar from Turkey, Medesat from Greece, MATPAN, National Marine Park Zakynthos, WWF involved in the project, and also RAXPA was one of the main partners, which means that the Northern African coast is involved in the project. Almost all important areas were involved in the project, but this project was funded by the MAVA Foundation, and the MAVA Foundation is closed last year. The project is looking for new funding opportunities to continue our collaboration. There are other things in this projects, all of this project, the ones we are collaborating, and the other projects that many other scientists and the NGOs participating and collaborating, looking for partners from other areas, from different locations, because, as I said, we cannot save turtles by ourselves. We need strong collaboration, and the exchange of information is really important for the future, especially the ones in the North Africa, really important. We are looking for new partners for the future. And thank you for listening. I can accept questions.
Well, thank you, Doğan, for your summary on the sea turtles in the Mediterranean. There are actually two questions. The first one is, are there the local community being involved in the protection of sea turtles in Turkey? The first one from Bülent, and the second one is from Abdulmullah Hamza again, our colleague from Libya. If there are more data published in the microsporadic nesting in the northwestern Mediterranean, will this make the attention to the small nesting sites and more funding transferred to these sites, and leave behind mega nesting sites in this other south and the east or med sites? That was very nice question. While we were looking at the single nest in the Western Mediterranean, how we are going to monitor the main nestings in the rest of the Mediterranean. Thank you.
Thank you. Two really good questions. I will start with the last one. This is an important issue because in the last 10-15 years, there were lots of funding resources, funded lots of big mega projects. So there we made a really good collaboration in the Mediterranean. We had some funding to protect most of the areas, and we gained lots of knowledge about them. Now we have sporadic nesting in the north and west part of the Europe. I don't think it will affect the major nesting size a lot, but my main concern is new emerging size. We have lots of, I believe, lots of nesting sites, important nesting sites is remain unknown, or we have very little knowledge in the northern coast of Africa, North Africa coast. We need funding for them. I believe the nesting sites in the west, northwest Mediterranean, especially in the European countries like Italy, Spain, and France, is going to find their local fundings, but we need bigger projects. The other question was asking the local community involvement in the conservation studies. In most countries, especially in Greece, in Turkey, there are lots of NGOs and local people are involving in the projects, supporting the projects. I believe in the sporadic nesting sites, people will find support from the local communities, which is very important. In the case of Turkey, it is actually the caretta is, as you all know, is the scientific name of this species. It's the loggerhead sea turtles. And when you ask someone in Turkey, what's the name of the caretta in Turkish, nobody knows. Everybody knows the scientific names, which is very important for the awareness, and the involvement is good. For the major nesting site, I think studies will continue, but we need to find solution to the other areas like North African coast and especially the places in the sea, the habitats in the sea, because they spend most of their lives in the sea. They are suffering from bycatch and other important threats in the sea, but we have very limited information and very limited conservation measures in the sea. So having NAS in the Northwest Mediterranean, I don't think it will be a problem for finding funds for the other project, at least for the next 20 years. But we need to focus on the collaboration and the in-water studies in North Africa, in Greece, Aegean, and Levanten Basin, I think. And we need solutions to find new partners for the projects. For example, the Red Sea, because we are very close to the Red Sea. We have common problems like the climate change and the fisheries. So we can compare our data, we can develop new projects together, and we can apply in different areas in the Mediterranean and the Red Sea. So I think if we continue our strong collaboration in the Mediterranean, we will be able to continue our good conservation efforts. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Doğan. I think it was very nice to have both of you today's panel, and we basically get the information about the sea turtles, their biology, their life cycle, and their threats that they are facing in their region, in the Red Sea and the Mediterranean, and how we can make a best collaboration and in order to protect these long-lived animals and migratory species. By saying this, actually, I would like to thank once again to INOC for organizing this panel and inviting us for moderator and the speaker. Now, I would like to give the floor to Bülent Çavaş from Dokuz Eylül University, from the Secretariat, to make his presentation. Thanks certificates to the speakers and the final words from him. Thank you.
Thank you very much for first of all for accepting our invitation to be a speaker and moderator for this event. And on behalf of Inter-Islamic Network on Oceanography, I would like to thank each presenters and moderator for their very informative presentations for on sea turtles. Let me share my screen. Doğan Hocam, if you can close your screen, maybe I can share my screen to show my the certificate. Let's take a second. So on behalf of, again, Inter-Islamic Network on Oceanography, thank you very much for the presentation from Dr. Hector Barrios Garrido. And again, thank you very much, Doğan Hocam, for your presentation. And Yakup Hocam, thank you very much. As moderator, you did very good job, and thank you very much for accepting our invitation to be a moderator for this event. So I also thank to all participants from other countries. They came to this event and listened the up-to-date information about sea turtles. As Inter-Islamic Network on Oceanography, we will continue to organize this kind of events in future. And if you would like to get more information, please don't forget to visit Inter-Islamic Network on Oceanography web pages and social media accounts to get more information. I think this is all from me, from İNOC. Yakup Hocam, I would like to give you the floor for your final word and closing.
Well, thank you. Well, actually, I just saw the Hector's message that he couldn't turn his camera on because he was the organizer at the beginning. Now, you probably, if you can allow him to switch on his camera, probably he can see his certificates. But in any case, we will send these electronically to all of you. Now he's back, and I saw him. And thank you, both of you, again. Obviously, sea turtles are very important. We know that 1 hour is not enough to cover their all biological information and the threats they are facing. And but one message we can get from this INOC meeting is we have the scientific knowledge among our countries, Islamic network countries, who is working on sea turtles. We have technologies and we can exchange our experiences, and probably as migratory species, as both speakers mentioned, in any case, we need to make a collaboration, no matter whether we are from the Islamic country or not. But I can see many colleagues, they cannot speak, but for example, Abdulmula Hamza from Libya, Sahbi from Tunisia, and Aber from Lebanon, and many others. If I miss, sorry, but there are many countries around the Mediterranean and the Red Sea already participated. I think in the future we can probably make more collaborations and probably big projects. And as Hector is holding his daughter, one of the good thing is passing this passion to our children is the key issue in the protecting of the sea turtles, because most of our age is over 40 or 50, whether you are young or old, but the passing this to the young generation is very important, as Hector is doing this very well in his country and in his region, and even within the family. And by saying this, I would like to thank again everyone for participating. We had around 30 people. That was very nice. And the main message is we are here to share our experiences and the data that we have in order to protect the Mediterranean and the Red Sea sea turtles, but all the turtles in the world. So please contact, and as we already have many common projects in the Mediterranean, I think we can do better in the future. And thank you everyone again. I hope to see you in the next INOC conferences series. Please contact and push your state countries to be a member as well. And that's also important, because if we can create a kind of stronger network, probably we can achieve more successful conservation for the entire oceanographic community, not only for sea turtles, but all the living species in the ocean. That's very important, because as it is mentioned, we are not only concentrating on the sea turtles, but fisheries interaction and other human activities related to the sea is very important. So ocean and oceanography is a key issue here, and we are all connected with this subject, and we are happy to continue to collaborate for the sustainable conservation of the marine stocks. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy your rest of the day, and stay healthy. Hope to see you in the near future, either face-to-face or virtually. Thank you again, INOC, for organizing such meeting. Thank you.